Good afternoon, welcome, and a big thank you towards the end of day 2, and you're still here with us. So I'm really, really delighted that you've stayed with us for this session. It is an introduction to private 5G, but we'll do a little bit more. I'm Chris Marwood, I'm the director of the private 5G portfolio of HPE. Delighted to have Bob Friday joining us, our Chief AI Officer. He'll give us a little bit of a glimpse into the future, where we're taking private 5G. And I'll say a little bit more about actually what we're selling today, what we can actually sell, the networks that we can actually provide. And then Sergio, one of our principal sales architects, will take you through a demo that will show you how quick and easy it is from start to finish to stand up private 5G networks. So you will have seen this. If you've been in sessions, you've seen this slide already, right? So please take note. We're talking about some things that are future under the appropriate confidentiality clauses. Can we get it to work? Brilliant. So this is the agenda. This is what I've just talked to. This is how we're going to take you through it. And I'm going to start with an introduction, but I want to ask 3 questions, really, before we start, because it's kind of a bit late in the day on the second day, right? So a little bit of a show of hands, please. How many people here know and understand Wi-Fi as a technology and delivered Wi-Fi and know their use cases? Fantastic. Just keep them up, please. How many know and understand about P5G as a technology and its use cases? Okay, not so many. Okay, so we've got an audience, Bob. I'm going to ask one last question. How many people flew in today from Charles de Gaulle Airport or through Charles de Gaulle Airport, or who have ever flown through Charles de Gaulle Airport? A few? Me too. I'll kind of come back to that a little bit later as we go through and talk a little bit about Charles de Gaulle. So private cellular, there has been a lot of information, a lot of kind of talk about P5G in the markets for quite some time, and a lot of mystique, I think, around it. But if we look at it in terms of its architecture, it's pretty simplistic in its build. Essentially, we've got SIM-enabled devices on the left-hand side, and those devices, we're getting a proliferation of them. So yes, security cameras, facial recognition, PDAs, tablets, ticketing devices, all of which are becoming 5G enabled, and there's more and more of those devices actually being launched into the market. This kind of year alone, the forecast for 5G enabled devices in Western Europe is 150 million will be shipped. A lot of that's mobiles, but a lot of it are things like card readers that we've talked about and PDAs and such like. So those devices connect over small cell radios, indoor and outdoor radios, which give you a sense of coverage. I'll talk a little bit about the coverage that you can provide. And via that radio, they connect to what is the mobile core. And again, there's been a lot of kind of excitement about that mobile core. It's a 5G network, right? And I think some of the excitement is because standards bodies have tried to drive what a 5G core is about. And 3GPP features and functionality. It's essentially a very robust, reliable 5G network, full feature rich, enabling the appropriate features and functionality that you would expect from a mobile network. That mobile core has the control plane and the user plane together. So all of the data and the decisions around the data and where that data needs to go sits in that mobile core. And the mobile core determines whether the data needs to go to which applications, whether that's applications in the customer's own networks, or it offloads to public networks in terms of where the data needs to go. And importantly, perhaps more importantly than all of that, over the top, a management dashboard, a dashboard that gives you the visibility of what's happening in a network. Also, the ease of which we can actually stand up and set up a network. So it's pretty simplistic. And when you look at it in terms of, I'm just having a chat before, but with these gentlemen at the front, you look at it in the context of Wi-Fi, which, you know, many of you raised your hands and said, yeah, we understand. It's pretty similar. The radio transmissions are small cells from a private cellular network. As I said, indoor and outdoor. Different bands for different regions. Here in Europe, it's a little bit different to what we actually deliver in the States, and it's a bit different to what happens in Asia Pac. But essentially, small cell radios, both indoor and outdoor. Equivalent Wi-Fi access points. We know them. We love them. We sold many, many of them. Thanks to you all, we've sold lots of them. So it's very similar in terms of kind of the radio connectivity. Spectrum a little bit different. So Wi-Fi is unlicensed. There's a license that comes along with spectrum from a 5G perspective. Here in Europe, those licenses are predominantly managed by operators, not solely, but predominantly. And ensuring that you have the right license spectrum for your particular country is an important kind of way forward. Fortunately, the EU have determined that, you know, the bandwidth that will actually be licensed for across Europe is 3.8 to 4.2 gigahertz, because there's all sorts of bandwidths that are actually in play at the moment. And the EU Commission have just stated and come out in September and said, hey, we want to standardize across EU countries by 2028. I know it'll take some time, but it'll simplify, you know, which bandwidth, which frequencies you actually want to run 5G networks on. And I think that's really important. I think it's a really, really good kind of step in the right direction. Coverage, Wi-Fi's, depending on the environment, 8,000 square feet coverage from APs, and probably more. And I know my colleagues at the front will probably tell me it's more. If you look at a radio, you're probably getting a bit more coverage on the radios for P5G, 8 to 10 times. So it gives you that little bit more power, a little bit more, you know, extensibility in terms of the way that you actually drive the solutions that you want for your customers. And I've already mentioned the control plane and data plane that sits in the mobile core. It's equivalent to the gateways or controllers that we use to actually manage our Wi-Fi solutions as well. So very, very similar in terms of kind of the way that they operate. And then the security aspect, the kind of final piece in terms of the architecture, because I say it's pretty simple. It's not going into massive amounts of complexity. But security on 5G, inherent in the mobile network, inherent in the SIM cards, and inherent in the devices. So we're implementing client security at device level from a private 5G perspective. When we look at Wi-Fi, of course, lots of different ways to authenticate the data that we actually provide. So if you know and understand, and I saw lots of hands saying, yeah, know and understand Wi-Fi, know and understand where we use Wi-Fi and how we implement it, private 5G is not hugely dissimilar, right? It's similar in terms of its architecture and its construct. And I'm going to say a little bit more about that a bit later, and about how we're simplifying P5G. Bob.
Thank you, Chris. And good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be in Barcelona with you. So I'm Bob Friday. I was the co-founder of Mist Systems. I am now the Chief A Officer at HPE Networking. You know, in the next couple of slides, I want to kind of share our plans for integrating private 5G into our self-driving vision. Now, I would start with, you know, for me personally, this self-driving vision started at Cisco when I was talking to some very large retail customers, and I was trying to convince them to put this customer mobile experience on their network. And the CI told me there was no way she was going to put a critical customer-facing app on her network until I could promise her that I would stop my controllers from crashing. She wanted to make sure I could innovate faster than twice a year on software development. But more importantly, she told me she wanted to make sure that that customer or that critical app was going to have a great internet experience, right? And that is when I realized there was a fundamental paradigm shift in networking, from just having to manage network elements to actually managing this client to cloud user experience, So while yes, we need to keep access points, switches, routers, all up and running on the network, and now private 5G radios, what was more important was making sure that that business critical app was actually going to work on the network. Now, how's that relevant to private 5G, right? I think there's two reasons why I'm still here pushing this self-driving rock up the hill and not sitting on a beach right now. One is this agentic AI. How many of you guys are playing with MCP servers and agentic AI stuff? Right? I think this is truly, adding this into our data science toolbox is what's going to enable us to actually get this self-driving network vision over the finish line, right? For those who have self-driving cars or been in the Waymo, we are on the verge of getting networking to that phase of a self-driving car. Now, the second reason I'm still here is I've always firmly believed that for most people, they just want to be connected to the internet via the best network available. And right now, there's two ways to, in our society, you're either connected to the internet through Wi-Fi or through cellular. So I've been on the mission to converge Wi-Fi and cellular for 20 years. This is like trying to get oil and water to come together, right? I got my 3GPP guys over here, my IEEE guys over here. Trying to get these guys in the same room to talk is almost impossible. So that's the other mission I've been on my bucket list before I retire. Now, if you look at the challenges we face here, trying to take a complicated technology like 3GPP cellular and make it as easy to deploy. This technology was designed for operators, right? It was not designed for enterprises. So the challenges we have to do before we can even do any self-driving stuff, we have to get this stuff connected to the cloud, and we have to get it configured. Now, on the Wi-Fi, in the Wi-Fi industry, we have moved over my 20 years from 20 years ago was doing wireless controllers everywhere. Now, when you take a Wi-Fi access point, when we ship that to a customer, it's already assigned to their cloud account. That customer takes that radio and basically with a QR code, assigns it to its account and onboards it, claims it, and onboards it. And we have large customers, a very large Walmart, Fortune 1 retailer customer, deployed 500,000 access points without a single human touching them. Those kits were sent out and they were deployed up and running. That is the vision that we need to bring into the private 5G experience. So we're on that mission now, is to see if we can't bring that private 5G radio into this day zero, day one, zero touch provisioning user experience. Now, once you have it connected to the cloud, then we can start getting into how do we start to make sure that the critical business apps that are on this network are actually getting a good experience. And when you think about that retail customer I talked to, right? This is probably even more relevant to private 5G, because if you're looking at private 5G, you basically have some sort of critical app that you need to run that somehow Wi-Fi wasn't going to solve, right? And I would tell you, when I talk to most customers, I kind of hear two things when it comes to business critical. One is the healthcare example, where they want to get voices. They want to get nurses running up on voice. They want all the nurses to have voicing. Now, voice can work over Wi-Fi, but cellular, if you're on your cell phone, I think we almost all prefer to have cellular for our voice calls. I don't know how many people who go out of their way to go over to Wi-Fi. It can work. But cellular's got a much better roaming experience, much more deterministic experience for that experience, and it has much better coverage. The other big use case when I talk to customers is if they have a coverage issue. If you want to provide coverage around a distribution center or a large space, private 5G is going to provide a much larger footprint. And the fewer radios don't have to deal with mesh. So those are kind of the use cases we see coming. Now I would say how many winemakers? How many winemakers out here? Anybody make wine? Does I make a barrel of wine every year? And I always say, great wine starts with great grapes. Great AI starts with great data, right? And that's probably the other thing we've done on the Wi-Fi industry in this self-driving thing. Once you have these things connected to the cloud, where I can actually get access to compute, storage, and do interesting AIOps, that is where the self-driving adventure starts. So that is the vision, I think, in terms of bringing our private 5G, the long-term vision, into the self-driving experience. Day zero, zero-touch provisioning. Day one, configuration. Day two is Marvis and self-driving to make sure that whatever business-critical app we have up and running on the network stays up and running. So now we're going to go back from crystal ball or where we're headed, Chris, and now we're going to get back, where are we now in terms of the journey, and how easy is it now to actually get a private 5G network up and running? Chris, brilliant. Come on up.
Thank you, Bob. Glimpse into the future and where we're heading. So to kind of go to the here and now. So just a little bit about kind of what's happening in the market. The trends, the use cases. Bob talked to some of this. He talked about deterministic, predictable data delivery, low latency for those mission critical applications where you can't fail to deliver. I talked about Charles de Gaulle Airport, wide area coverage, particularly outdoors. Charles de Gaulle Airport is huge. Anybody who's flown through that will know. So Charles de Gaulle, we have implemented a P5G network for Charles de Gaulle Airport for specific applications. So I didn't fly through Charles de Gaulle coming here. I went through Schiphol. But Schiphol, a huge airport. Essentially what Charles de Gaulle are using P5G for is the communication airside to launch planes off the apron, not into the sky, take them off the apron, to park them onto the apron, to move the robotic devices that are now being used to put the stairs up to help us get off of planes and off flights, to run the AGVs that run for refueling purposes, airside. And when I looked out, when I was at Schiphol, and I looked at the activity across that airport as I was just sat waiting to take off, there's so much going on. It's a critical environment where they can't get it wrong. So they want to use P5G in that scenario as a deterministic capability to know that the messages are going to get through, to know that the devices are going to be where they need to be, and the vehicles are going to be where they need to be. And the other thing that they also did, which is why I did mention it in Schiphol, they have an asset tracking capability on P5G networks. I lost my bag going through P5G at the Charles de Gaulle quite a few years ago and spent 2 days on the south of France with customers waiting for my case to arrive, right? I'm not saying that my bag would have been tracked on P5G. There was nothing of value in it. But they are tracking value assets through the network, valuable assets through the network and through the airport. So they know where those assets are. Maybe, if we'd have had P5G going back then, I wouldn't have felt so awkward with my customers down in the south of France. But, thankfully, we've got improvements in technology. Tracking of high volume digitally enabled assets. High volume of assets through manufacturing environments where you've got robotics in big warehouse environments where there's a lot of metal and there's a lot of things that can actually obstruct the radio frequency and the messaging. Brilliant environment for P5G. We provisioned a smart manufacturing facility in Asia Pac in Taipei for a customer. They decided no Wi-Fi whatsoever there. It's fully robotic. It's fully automated in terms of the environment. They wanted it to be absolutely confident that they can actually deliver and continue to manufacture their electronics, their electronic manufacturer, without any concerns or worries. It's up and running, all on P5G. They have told me that they think they have a 30% improvement in performance in that environment compared with their other facilities where they're running Wi-Fi. And that's cool. Wi-Fi, they've loved and they've built facilities with Wi-Fi for a number of years. But now they have this smart facility with far more electronics and robotics. They said, hey, we think P5G is the right way to go. So 30% performance improvement because the network is very stable. Right? They're not seeing any outages in terms of the production line and the facility. So that sort of environment is really, really, really important. High velocity mobility, AGVs I've mentioned, yeah, guided vehicles. You know, we need to be pretty confident they're going to go where they should go and not where they shouldn't go. And again, P5G being adopted for that. And others, challenging RF environments. We also provisioned P5G into mining capabilities, right? So one for health and safety, so that communications to workers who are in a mining environment, you know you can get communications to them. You know where they are. You know what they're doing. And these are down deep mine shafts and others and other environments. But they're also running sensors looking for movement in the mine core. And that's the communication to tell people is really important, because if they see movement sensor saying there's something wrong in a mine, right, and there may be an issue from a safety perspective, they need to know instantly, and they need to communicate to their employees, we might need to do something about this. So P5G, it's got its use cases. There are specific areas, specific use cases where P5G works, and we're starting to see that adoption. And for us, there were a few opportunities. I mentioned 3GPP, Bob mentioned it. The mystique of whether it's been built by operators of big mobile networks, right? We take that complexity away. The products that I'm just going to talk to hides the complexity of 3GPP. We'll provide a robust P5G network. You don't need to go into the details of what operators do in terms of the way they run their networks to make it work. We're taking away multi-vendor complexity. We can offer HPE end-to-end in terms of a P5G solution. For all those elements that I talked about in terms of the architecture at the start, we'll offer you an out-of-the-box end-to-end solution. I talked about compatibility of devices. It's growing, it's growing, it's growing. So I think that helps in terms of adoption of P5G networks. And I've already mentioned as well, there's so many different spectrums licensed across all the different countries. It's great that the EU body's coming together and saying, hey, let's kind of focus on one. There's something similar happening in Asia Pac, so focusing down on particular frequencies, which I think will make it much easier to adopt and kind of simplify the plethora of different bands of radios, frequencies of radios, types of radios that you might want to actually deploy. So there are opportunities. And this is it. This is what we do. This is essentially what we offer. 5G core, we can provide the SIMs or eSIMs, if that's what you want for the devices. Spectrum access system, we've launched our product firstly in the States on CBRS. That's where we use spectrum access system. But for the rest of the world, it'll be via operators for the licenses and the license spectrum. A range of indoor and outdoor radios. If you visited the booth at all, there's one of our radios on there. So we are building and we have launched our own radios. And that management capability, cloud-based for simplicity and visibility and ease of use. It's easy from a perspective of how do you buy it? Right? Count up the number of radios you need and how many devices you need to connect. And that essentially gives you the bill of materials that says, hey, this is what you buy. The core is the core. The mobile core is the network. The radios and the devices are what differentiates in terms of size and scale. The software scales. Our largest network is 650,000 connected devices. here in Europe, in Italy. And it can scale right down. We've run proof of concepts on single-digit numbers of devices to show customers how it works. So we can scale, we can go from small to high-end and high scale on the same software, no differentiation. It's an open standard. The great thing is, and I kind of close, but I'll talk to it now. We got 15 years of experience in HPE of building this mobile core network. So we bought a company, one of our acquisitions was Athernet. Athernet were and we are now a leader in P5G, and they've taken a long time listening to customers with feedback to build this core network. So our core network is significant. It's open standards. It complies with 3GPP. We want to interface through APIs to radios that are also 3GPP compliant. If you don't want to use our radios, that's fine. Provided the radios that are selected by partners and customers are compliant, we're going to get them to work. There's a lot of radios out there, so you've just got to be a little bit careful about which ones you might select. We talked about high availability for critical workloads. Bob talked about that. And really, what we've created, I think, is systems integrator ready. This event's been fantastic for me personally, because I've talked to a lot of systems integrators and asking, hey, look, is this something that we can partner with them so that they can integrate P5G into the wider customer infrastructure of the state? Absolutely right, absolutely perfect. That's kind of what we want to do. We can deploy it in two ways. We can deploy P5G as an on-premise solution. Quite a number of customers initially are taking it as an on-premise solution, managed on-premise, with the user interface local to the actual P5G network and device. We can deploy it as a virtual machine, software with licenses. We can deploy it on HPE standard hardware. Nothing non-standard around what we're actually developed. And it's available today. It's available globally. So it's available here in Europe. We have a cloud-managed capability. Everything is a HPE P5G network in a box. All of that architecture ready to ship in a box. And enabled today for that self-driving network that Bob's talked about, and that's coming sooner than we think. Launched US today, launched in Europe second half of this financial year. And I'm looking to see if I can accelerate it. I'd love it to be here much quicker, but we're confident that we'll have it available for the European market second half of this financial year. And a little bit more about what it is. There's the software. We have a data core. It's the same software, right? So we have data as a software virtual machine that you can deploy in the customer's environments. And we have an IMS. We have an optional voice service as well. So if customers, I've talked to quite a few healthcare customers over the course of these 2 days, where they need hot standby conference calling between medics in hospital environments. We've got an IMS service. We've got a voice service that can actually deliver that sort of functionality. So if voice is important, not a lot, and it is for many customers, we have a voice software as well. And we can sell that with third-party radios. We can sell that on third-party. It can be provisioned on third-party hardware, but it can also be provisioned on our HPE servers. On the right-hand side, essentially, is a HPE end-to-end version of that available right now. It's the mobile core that sits on our HPE servers with SIMs, which we will provision, or eSIMs, if that's the preference, and HPE radios that will come second half of this year. But right here, right now, we can also provision Nokia radios and BTI radios. So that gives us, and we know that we can get those up and running and give the quality of service that our customers desire. And then this is heading to that future that Bob talked about. Cloud managed and simple. This is a key. And if customers are comfortable and happy that their data can be managed from the cloud, this is a perfect product. Again, P5G core, as I've talked about, sat on a standard HPE server with HPE radios. You can see the different bandings today. Again, SIMs and eSIMs that are HPE SIMs and eSIMs, and a cloud-native management dashboard. And that management dashboard that Sergio will take you through gets you from that day zero through to zero touch day one and into day two that Bob talked about in 7 minutes, because we've timed the video. It's pretty simplistic in terms of what we've managed to actually develop and deliver. So taking that complexity away. And then kind of us, I talked a little bit, I said, so 15 years in the market, we acquired a robust P5, very robust P5G core. It has hundreds of features, and it's given us the opportunity to simplify that and say, hey, what actually is a robust P5G network? So the simple product that we have is a robust P5G network, and you don't have to worry about understanding 3GPP, understanding the different protocols that are associated with it. If you've ever had a look at 3GPP standards, and I'm one of those sad people who have, you can spend forever kind of reading through it. It is a complex beastie, right? We've taken that away, so we've simplified it significantly. We've deployed for over 150 customers globally, over 500 deployments, so we have a significant track record. 25 service providers, many of them here in Europe, are also using it within their networks and selling onwards to their customers as well. I've met with a number of them over these last couple of days, and we won some awards because of that technology. So we've got a real proven track record in P5G. And then, so I'm going to ask Sergio now to prove what I've just said to you guys and show you how easy this is, right? In terms of how we set it up and the management interface that we've created and built. Sergio, over to you.
Thank you, Chris. Well, in this demo, we will show the cloud-based management dashboard that Chris was explaining. This is a 7-minute recorded demo, okay? So we will go through the different steps about how to configure and manage a private 5G network. So here we are logged in as an IT administrator, okay? So this is really simple, yeah, it's user-friendly. In the landing page, we can see how many networks we have, okay? Green means already deployed, up and running. Gray means it's configured, but not yet deployed. And red means there are a few issues in certain networks, okay? So if we go over the different networks, we can quickly see the traffic, uplink and downlink, okay? And the status of the network. If we go to the network stuff, we will see in a tabular view, okay, the different networks, provision networks in gray color, in green color, the networks already deployed, and the key metrics of the network, okay? So we can see the status, we can see if there is an upgrade available, we can see the traffic as well, and the number of users activated in the network, okay? In the upper part, we have the chance to create a new network. So there are two options: to create a simple network with only one appliance, or a redundant network with 2 appliances. Okay? So yeah, the idea is to quickly configure a new private network. Okay? We will see now how simple it is to define a new network. Okay? So before doing that, we need to meet the IT. Well, the IT team needs to meet the network design team, okay, to set the VLANs, to set the IP addresses, the quality of service that we want to deploy in the network, the different APNs and profiles. So now here we will show how simple it is to create a network. It's only 7 steps, okay? The first step is to define the name, to define the location of the network, okay? Next step, is to set the VLANs for the different internal services, okay, for the radio, for the APNs, okay. Next step is to configure the PLMN ID, MCC, and NC that defines a network, okay. Next step is the fourth, is to define the radio access network. That means the VLAN for the quality of service, the IP addresses for the different radios, and the subnetwork and gateway. Okay? Next step is to define the different APNs. In this example, we have created 3 employees. This is the default APN with the VLAN, with the subnet network. Okay? We have defined a second APN for guests, as in Wi-Fi. Okay? And a third APN is for IoT devices. Okay? Every single APN has a VLAN associated for quality of service and IPs. And this 6th step is very important because it's where we take the unique ID of the network, and this will be very useful to the dashboard to recognize the network. Okay? Last step is just to review all parameters, and in this step we can easily deploy the network. It will take around 3 minutes, so later on we will come back here to see that the network is fully deployed. Okay? Now we are going to see that we have an upgrade available, so we can click and upgrade to the latest version. Okay? If we go deeper into the up and running network, we will see in this overview the number of devices connected, okay? The number of devices enabled, and also some network health KPIs. Okay? Below you can see the current traffic, okay? Uplink, downlink. There are different time window options in the upper part, from 3 hours up to 3 days. Okay? We can configure. If we go to appliance, we will see in this example that there are 2 appliances, okay? Because there is high availability. If we go over the different control plane, user plane, and IMS, we will see the different network functions. In radius status, we see the number of radios connected, okay? The status of the radios, the number of active devices. If we open the drop-down list, we will see that there are 2 interfaces defined for the different control planes because we have redundancy. Okay? Moving to monitoring KPIs, we can see the metrics, main metrics. We can see the CPU consuming. We can see the memory consumed, so in different options. Okay? We have the network traffic, disk space, all key metrics to know the status of the network. If we move to appliance configuration, here we can define or modify the parameters that we initially set, okay? The quality of service, APNs, the name, all details. Moving to subscribers tab, here we can follow the full life cycle of a user. We can add new SIM cards, we can modify parameters, we can associate the SIM card to a certain profile, to a certain network, okay? So you can see here the service profile. If you remember before, we said guest and employee, so it's really easy. We are going to come back quickly to the network status to check if the network is already deployed. Yes, it is. In 3 minutes, we have deployed a network in only 7 steps. Okay? So, yeah, this is cool. So that means there is no any new version. So coming back to subscribers, in subscribers, there are 2 options, adding a single user or adding several users. If we want to add several SIM cards, we can load a CSV with a bulk file, okay, and we add multiple SIMs. So here, once they are loaded, we will see that they are all disabled. So we need to set a private 5G network and also a profile. So in this case, once we have done this, we can enable. And then later on, if we want to modify any parameter or the profile, we can easily do it from this console. Okay? So basically, yeah, this is the demo. So I hope you like it. Thank you.
Sergio. Careful. Thank you, Sergio. And it was real time. We haven't kind of sped it up, and it is that simple. So that's what we've done. And what I should say before I just come to conclude is also the on-premise version, we will have a setup wizard on the hardware or in the software to do the network configuration out of the box, and we will have an EMS, a management system, on either the hardware or in the software to manage the radios. So that comes the second half of the year as well, and it's going to look very, very similar to that, the same sort of look and feel. Because we're building once in terms of the technology, we want to deploy it many times as we can. So just kind of a wrap up. Simple, it's a complex thing, P5G, but it doesn't have to be. So we've learned the complexity, and we have that background, and we've taken that complexity and learned and understood what customers need, and we hope and we think made it really, really simple to be able to actually deploy. And if you have a background in Wi-Fi and you understand it, not too dissimilar. It's flexible because we'll deploy on-premise, we'll deploy in the cloud, we'll deploy it on the software, we can deploy it as a full end-to-end solution. So we offer the flexibility to meet different customer requirements and different partner requirements. Proven, we've been around a while and we've learned things in terms of P5G. And I think the various different deployments that we have in those mission critical environments where you've got to have deterministic data, and they're working fantastically well, are kind of the proof of our track record. And as we look a little bit further into the future, self-driving networks, self-driving performance-enhanced P5G networks is the way that we are going. It's the way that we're heading, and we'll head there at quite a rate of knots. That's kind of it. If you haven't visited the booth, it's a bit late by now, but if you have, we're still up there, right? So our colleagues are still up there if you want to do so. There's also communities that I talked about, but if things like airheads and such like have been going on over these last couple of days, but yeah, take pictures. So these are some of the communities that we want you to engage with. And there is a survey that runs, and please, feedback is a gift always, regardless of what it looks like or sounds like. There's a survey. Please, if you've got it on your app, fill it in, let us know what you think. And on behalf of Bob, and on behalf of Sergio and I, and that's all. Thank you for attending. Thanks for sticking with us. I appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed the event.